Kabluh ya.
She's turned the winds against us. Ah, soda.
Hello and welcome to another movie review from MBE. We'd just like to thank you once again for joining us here on our YouTube channel and of course our Twitch stream. I'm one of your co-hosts, Stephen John McLaughlin, the co-host John C. Walsh, and our special guest Ruth Aaron. We're all here tonight to talk about the latest instalment from the MCU, Marvel Studios' Black Widow, that should have been out last year. I don't know when. I think it got delayed about 2 or 3 times last year and once this year as well. This is directed by Kate Shortland, who I'm not too familiar about. It stars, of course, the great Scarlett Johansson. We've got Florence Pugh in there, who we're big fans of. David Harbour, big fans of him as well. Rachel Weisz, Roy Winston, and a whole host of other stars in there as well. William Hurt as well. He plays a part in this as well. To link it into the MCU with that character, he's almost like the sort of villainous version of the Samuel L. Jackson character to link in all these stories, isn't it?
You're right, Steve.
But I'm going to pass it over to you now, John.
Yes.
And you can take us through this, your review experience.
Well, Steve, it's going to be mightily difficult because my eyesight is bad at the best of times, but when you have a 18-inch ring light that's reminiscent of what Neil Armstrong would have experienced back in 1960, whenever it was on the moon.
69, yeah.
69. It's a little bit difficult to see what I'm doing in OBS, but I'll do my best. I can't really hear myself speaking because I've got the headphones on, a necessity. That's absolutely fine. I don't want to hear myself speaking. I'm surprised anybody wants to hear me speaking with that Kermit the Frog voice.
Assy man.
Assy man. Has he commented again?
He's in.
We've got a returning person that just types Assy man all the time, Ruth, if you're not aware. And I find it hilarious. I find it hilarious, man. I don't know what this guy's on, man. But yeah. It's funny to me, but needless to say, the review. Let's bring up the review. That's not what I wanted to bring up at all. This is the review system, the rating system. This is the way we rate our movies. So at some point at the end of this show, we will give a rating, and this is how we do it. F is a terrible movie. Don't be looking for an F in this review. It's not going to come. That's not a spoiler. This is like for the films like The Fanatic, John Travolta. I can't think of much more. Phoenix Forgotten, a couple of other movies will go in here. Most of Nick Cage's movies in the last 10 years will go in here. Average D -3 plus. It's an average experience. It's neither good, it's neither bad, it's just average. It resides in that purgatory. C -3 plus is good. That's a good experience. A lot of movies will slip into here. They're not bad. They're good watches. Enjoyable. You've not wasted your time watching them. Excellent is -3 plus. It's B, an excellent experience. My favourite movie of all time. I see it every week. We'll go in here. Cool Hand Luke. The great Paul Newman. It's not perfect. That's why it's in here, but it's a fantastic movie. And A is reserved for utter perfection. The most perfect creations in the history of cinema slide into here. Very rare experience. Someone's going to have to do something really unbelievable, like Bong Joon-ho or Boon Jong-ho. I always screw his name up. Like what he did last year with Parasite. That will go into A. So that's the way we rate our movies. So keep that in mind when we get to the end. Now we're going to go into the actual review guideline and also break down this movie. Dissect it if you like a good mortician does in an autopsy. That's not a nice analogy, but that's exactly what we're going to be fucking doing. So tough titty. The story. Actually, the introduction to this movie. Ruth, I'll get into you first. What was your... Also, you're a big fan of the MCU. You've been involved in a lot of the shows,
Yes.
commenting. So you would have been well
Yeah.
aware of Natasha Romanoff, well aware of her demise in Endgame. What was your thoughts going into this movie? What was your thoughts in the build-up? Were you frustrated when this movie was getting pushed back again and again due to COVID? And ultimately, did that hamper or heighten your enjoyment of this movie once you finally got to see it? What was your experience getting into this movie, in a sense, is what I'm asking?
I thought they shouldn't have pushed it back like so far, because I think because it didn't come out when it was supposed to, there were a few things that left much to be desired because of that, in terms of the timing of when certain things came out. Because, for example, if it had come out earlier, then that would have been the first time we see her as opposed to seeing her in the Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things. But other than that, I think it was fine. It didn't really affect my enjoyment of the movie itself.
Yeah. Listen, personally, I'll bring Stephen on in a minute. I'll share my thoughts. Stephen's going last, sadly, Steve.
Nah,
Get
I'm
you in
fine
in a
with that.
minute.
I think
Not
that's the
linger
way we
too
should
long
do
on
it, yeah.
But also, I'm a huge fan of Natasha Romanoff. I've been watching this character for a decade. I think it was the first... Was it Iron Man she appeared? But
Iron Man
Avengers.
2.
Avengers, the first Avengers movie, she also has that incredible scene where she beats the shit out of people whilst tied to a chair, I think it was. Am I
Yeah.
not wrong in saying? So from that moment on, I was very interested in her. She's also evolved as a character and became the sort of matriarchal figure of the Avengers. So that loss was hard to take in the Endgame, but it was a necessity. It was either her or Clint Barton, and ultimately she had gone as far as she could go, and she decided to sacrifice. She didn't have a family to fight for, and that is tackled in this movie as well, incidentally, why she didn't have a family. We'll get into that at some point. But what I'm saying is I had a real bond to this character. I thought she deserved a movie prior to this. I think it was a crying shame it took a decade for her to get her standalone movie. But as she says in time, it's gone by there, the last couple of weeks or so, it's actually made the movie better. The characters went through more, so that ultimately makes it a wholesome experience, probably more so than what it would have been 5-6 years ago. So what I'm saying is, getting into this movie, I really was excited for it, to see the last hurrah for this character, to see the future in Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova, is it?
Yeah.
Character. So there was a lot of things going on there, and I was anticipating it. Not going to lie, I thought it should have probably went on a streaming service by now. But watching the movie, I understand why that's the case, because there is some spoilers in there, and they want those spoilers to be revealed in the best way possible, and that's on the cinema. I was excited for this movie, much like you, Ruth. Disappointed it get pushed back. I thought they'd just put it out no matter what and move on with the more enticing future movies, Eternals, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home. But look, man, it didn't hamper my enjoyment of the movie either. The delays, once I get into watch it was like slipping into an old pair of slippers. I really enjoyed getting back into the MCU. Steve, what was your thoughts getting into this movie? Did the delays hamper and
No.
heighten your anticipation?
No.
What was your thoughts?
I wasn't fussed
The build-up.
on. I could have waited for a year and a day for this to come out.
Get
Only
into it
because of the timing
Wouldn't
of the release of it, John.
Shambles.
And that is because as Black Widow, her first appearance in that Iron Man 2 movie, and the growth of the character throughout right up to Endgame, I think this film should have been made 4 or 5 years ago. I think it should have. A lot of people say she might not have earned the right to that. I think she did. I think she was very unique. Scarlett Johansson as well, an award-winning actress playing the character, and I felt there was enough there to do a film 4 years ago. That's not to say that I wasn't intrigued to see what they were going to do with this movie, and when it was finally released. Now, my opinion of the film has slightly changed since I've watched the film. Like most films, it does change. The reason for that is because I did not, prior to watching this, think, what is the point of this release? We're going into phase 4. This is a character from the past phases. It's not really having any connection going forward. Then I watch the film and I see what they've done. The Florence Pugh character, the David Harbour character, and the Rachel Weisz character, perhaps Dreykov as well, Ray Winston, going forward might have parts to play in the Disney Plus series. They might have parts to play in the MCU, the films. Yeah. And I do think the Florence Pugh character is going to appear in, obviously, the television series Hawkeye. It's clear to see after that end credit scene. But I was surprised where this was taking place as well, John. I was talking to you last night about this, and it blew me away that I did know it was after Civil War, but it was after the events of the last scene of Civil War, placed in between there and the end credit scene from Civil War.
The breakout.
Which I thought was fantastic.
Was that Ant-Man, Scott Lang and Clint Barton?
Yeah. So that intrigued me as well. But it's an MCU film. You're not going to ignore them. As Kevin Feige says, you need to pay attention to all the films and all the television series going forward now, because they all interlink. That's the other thing as well that really bugged me, was that I hate when they do that to characters. They over-explain and have to do their backstory. That's why I wasn't excited about Solo, the Star Wars film. I didn't really want to know the backstory of Han Solo. I like that mystery about the character, and I did worry about this character as well, that perhaps they might over-explain too much. But we'll get into that. We'll obviously get into themes and stuff like that.
And that's why the cynic in me said that they only did this movie to introduce Yelena and forward the Black Widow persona further, because we find out in this Black Widow's not a unique thing. There's lots of widows. And if Rachel Weisz's Melina character was a widow, in one scene I think 12 widows take on Natasha in that sort of room. That young man, what was his name? Ray Winston's character.
Dreykov?
Yeah, that's in that scene you see there's multiple widows. So for me, being a cynical individual, I'd say it wasn't anything about Natasha and expanding out her story, giving Scarlett Johansson a payoff. I think it was ultimately about giving Yelena the chance to come into this movie, and how better to do it than to give her a sort of backstory introduction connection to obviously Natasha Romanoff. But look, we've got a comment coming in from Elevator Not Worthy, I believe it is. Not saying assy man, saying something actually decent. I really enjoyed this movie. I'd only give it a B+. It's quite a high rating, man. You'd only give it a B+. We gave the Best Picture movie from this year a B+. Well, I think Stephen gave it even less. I think he maybe gave it a C- or something. You didn't connect with it, did you? C+. I loved the opening. Florence was amazing in it. She certainly was. We'll get into that. I actually liked Taskmaster, so did I. Interesting persona behind that character. I thought that was cool, what they did with that. The only problem I have was with Val, I should say, and the random ass shots in the movie. There was a few. Yeah, I see what you're talking about. There was a moment where she's in Norway and she comes out the caravan. I'm like, what are they doing? It's so low, focusing on her ass, man. I'm like, what is this all about? But look, man, I had some issues with this movie as well. We'll get into them, I'm sure, in due course. The story, though, thoughts on the writing, character development, the way it ebbed and flowed, any themes explored, and the ending. That's kind of what's under that umbrella of the story and breaking it down. For me, I really liked the story. I thought it was interesting, as you said, Steve, in the time period they put it in, that little nestled period between Civil War and the end credits. It was intelligently done. That's what I love about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Kevin Feige's head figure. He knows how to intelligently create stories where you think there is none. And just the way they explored the Budapest, as she calls it, I always call it Budapest, but there you go, you learn something new every day. The way they explored that whole relationship with Clint Barton, what they did there, delved into this character, into the harrowing upbringing, Yelena. I liked the story. I thought it was well written in the main. I can't understand those little butt-hurt women haters on the internet who like to slag this movie off. And
No.
yeah, look, I had my issues with some of the reviews and the wording, but look, I see what they're talking about. Because the Ray Winston character deserved to get slapped down. He deserved to beg for mercy, and he was a male, sadly. So I can see what they're talking about now, having seen it. I take it back, whatever his name was. I'll remember it, believe me. I've got a long memory. Hindi Wire. What was your thoughts on the writing, Ruth, in this story? Did you like the way the characters were developed? For me, it was really primarily Florence Pugh's character that was developed. There wasn't much more to do with Natasha. We knew a lot about her. It was more about the Elena character and perhaps even Red Guardian. What was your thoughts on development, the actual story? Did you like the way it was written and the way it ebbed and flowed? Do you think there could be anything taken out of this movie? What was your thoughts on the story?
I really enjoyed the dynamic between the family members. Like all of them, the way they interacted with each other was actually very interesting. It was a lot of fun to watch, the way they played off each other. So I really liked all the family bits that they did. I thought it was very tight, very well written. And it kind of gave you a kind of a glimpse into why Natasha is the way she is. And you can understand also where she gets her some of her motivations from. So that's actually quite well fleshed out. I was although a bit unhappy about the villains.
Yeah.
Because I thought they weren't as impressive as they could have been.
Yeah, Taskmaster. Elevator not worth say she quite liked Taskmaster. I did in a way. It flourishes, but you're right, man. That was probably, and I've actually wrote that in my criticism. So we'll get that out of the way just now, while we talk about story. Yeah, the villains for me, the Ray Winston villain. I'm going to keep forgetting his name because that's the way my brain works.
Dreykov.
He came into the movie quite late. He was spoken about. He was at the start when obviously the two kids are whisked away to become widows. He wasn't in the movie enough. When he comes at the end, he's quite. Yeah, cocky, arrogant. He's slapping Natasha about until he obviously gets that little pheromonal thing taken away. Then he's on his knees begging for mercy. He was quite weak for me. Taskmaster, I didn't like it when they dehumanised the character, when they humanised the character, I should say, by revealing her as his daughter. And obviously it was Olga Kurylenko who was playing it, incidentally. That was a nice little surprise. Sadly taken away from me because I found out about it via an article on Screen Rant. Thank you, Screen Rant, for spoiling movies 2 weeks after they've been released. Get your shit together. But yeah, for me that was one of the downsides to this story. There wasn't one compelling villain. You think about Ant-Man and the Wasp, Stephen, and you've got Walton Goggins in there, you've got Jimmy Woo in there, you've got that ghost character, and that's a minor story in the MCU. You've got other ones like Eric Killmonger and getting into what it means to be black and what it means to help out people in a minority community and all that stuff getting delved into by the brilliant Ryan Coogler and Black Panther, I should say. That was a downside to me. And the main though I thought the story was good. I'm not going to get into it anymore because I've spoken the legs off it. Stephen, what was your thoughts on the story? Did you have any issues with the character development, the way it ebbed and flowed?
No.
Was there any themes coming out at you in this movie?
Think,
that's one thing I didn't really pick up incidentally, apart from male arrogance.
Alexei and Yelena was probably the best character development in the film for me. The story was very run-of-the-mill, heroes and villains. Ruth made a good point. I don't think they really made up their mind about who was the main antagonist in this movie. I don't think Dreykov was in it enough or had enough presence. You're right, John. I don't think he was menacing enough until maybe the last those 5 minutes of screen time he had with Natasha.
He was like a Fagin character.
Yeah, and also the Taskmaster. I was thinking Ant-Man and the Wasp the whole time I was watching this film, saying, unless this character's going to reappear at some point, can it? I don't know.
She survives, doesn't she? But she kind of gets the spell removed.
Yeah, she didn't have a line in the whole film. So there was a bit emotionless from that character as well. So I had issues with that as well. But I was very impressed with, obviously, Alexei. His development. I thought he was a bit of an ass, as they say in the US, early on. But as the film developed, I'm starting to like him. It was starting to grow on me a bit. I felt he was a bit whiny at first as well, especially with Yelena and Natasha. I felt they handled him really well.
I thought that was good though, Stephen.
Yeah, the other thing that bugged me, in nearly every scene they had to have a joke. Even when they were talking about when Yelena was talking about having like her ovaries and stuff.
Oh,
like
Steen,
that.
I love that.
Yeah,
That was brilliant. We'll get into that.
But I just felt, really, we're making jokes about that. The MCU are famed for their humour, and I've always liked their humour, but I just felt every time there was a serious moment coming up, they threw in another one-liner. I thought, it's too much.
What I'd say about that moment though, Stephen, I think that moment was actually tinged in tragedy, because it actually revealed...
It should have been sad. It should have been more emotional.
But that was that character.
Yeah.
She was quite matter of fact, I can't speak. And she was just that way, quite choppy and batting things away, and you could see by the end of the movie that she actually did have a soft centre. She wasn't hard as nails as she was portrayed. At one point, I think Red Guardian says, "You were the greatest child assassin ever." I think he says something about your ledgers will be dripping in blood. So he had this vision of her being hard as nails, a child assassin, all of the emotion taken out. And I think actually Melina says that at one point as well. How did you keep your heart? To Natasha. So most of these characters, these people who were touched by the Red Room, are emotionless because they're under a spell, or they've just been battered and beaten by this lifestyle. You don't see that with Yelena. She actually does have a heart. And that moment where she speaks about the ovaries and she can't have kids and all of that, I don't get my period or something along
I just
those
felt
lines.
it was mistimed. I thought it was misplaced. But I did like when she was talking about that vest thing with all the pockets. That was hilarious. That was what I liked about this character.
She gives it at the end,
when she was talking about, she's never had that choice to go and pick her own clothes and that kind of thing. It made you realise as well just what a stern life these widows lead.
Yeah.
They're controlled their whole lives. It's sad.
Hello, Von Starlord. Thank you for coming in. Thank you. He said, "Hey guys, if you get any other thoughts on the story, Ruth, what was your thoughts? And did you see any themes in this movie? For me, the key theme for me was empowering females, having been a strong woman, and these two characters, three characters actually, even Melina, coming through this really harsh landscape. I think Melina says at one point she'd been through the Red Room 3-4 times before you were even on the scene in Natasha. So I think that was a core theme: the power of feminism, the power of women, what they can go through. And then at the same point, maybe looking at someone like Red Guardian, a theme of perhaps, I don't know, hubris, arrogance, and how that's a dangerous path to go down because you're stuck in the past, about your past exploits. You're not merely moving forward, and you're turning into a bit of a joke. You're old, you're fat, and you're trying to fit into suits. That was the two kind of themes I thought were in this movie: hubris, male arrogance, and then the power of females. I don't know if I'm wrong, but maybe as a woman, what did you see in this, Ruth? Because also you're going to see it perhaps slightly different to me. Did you see any key themes popping up in this movie? Hello, Asiman.
No, I like the idea about them showing actually strong females on screen. Plus, it also what I like about it is that they didn't just show their strength; they also showed their vulnerability as also a way in which they managed to cope. I mean, a lot of Yelena's connection with the family was a bit more stronger because she was a younger child. So to her, the family was as real as any family would be. Whereas for Natasha, she joined them a bit more when she was a bit more older. So, in that sense, she didn't feel the connection the same way.
Sorry, I'm bringing things up and I'm forgetting you're actually getting tracked there, sorry. I'm trying to check information about Twitch, because we're actually on Twitch as well. Sorry, Ruth, I'm interrupting you there. On you go.
No, it's fine. Yeah, so so I think in that sense, I like the way they showed both the hard parts and the soft, vulnerable parts of the female characters, which I thought was really good. And I felt the Red Guardian was a lot of fun. It was a fun character. He had some of the best lines, I think, and he was a good interjection to break the tension. But I agree with the fact that maybe a little bit too much humor. It could have been toned down and showed off some of the emotion a bit more. But other than that, I thought their part of the story was quite well done. I would think, My only disappointment is in the other areas. Yeah,
that's always the issue with, I think, Marvel movies. It's a fine balance sometimes with the way they handle the humour, and sometimes it can overshadow dark, maybe emotional moments. And that's why I think it's better to maybe take someone like a Taika Waititi and a James Gunn and just use up all the humour in their movies, because they are masters at using that humour and then twisting it and you have a really dark, deep moment after it. I keep going on about Jojo Rabbit, but for me it's one of the best movies I've seen from Taika. And you see that in his movie, he goes from real shock, pain, sort of frantic moments where there's the SS getting into the room, then he turns it into a laugh. So those are the kind of directors I want to see utilising humour a little bit more. For the other ones, I think they should just focus on the actual story at hand, doing a good job. And look, Kate Shortland, Stephen mentioned it at the start, I don't know much about her. I think she's quite, I don't know if she's up and coming, I may be completely wrong, but obviously, I was about to say Natasha, Scarlett Johansson fought hard to get that director to obviously do this movie. She wasn't sure at the start of actually tackling a Marvel movie, so she fought hard for us. So she also seen something in her, much like maybe Michael B. Jordan did in Stephen Caple Jr. in Creed 2. So look, I'm not going to criticise her too much. I don't know much about her filmography, but there was elements in this in terms of comedy, in terms of the villains and being a little lacklustre, that do dent it a little bit and bring the rating. Ultimately for me, I'm going to give this down a little bit, but it's still rated high for me. I did enjoy it. But look,
I've changed my rating, by the way.
You changed it?
Yeah.
But we'll get into standout moments then in this movie. What is your standout moments? I've got quite a few. Favourite scenes or sequences, maybe a favourite moment that maybe touched you or something that maybe didn't touch you, and that's a standout moment. Standout moments don't have to be positive. They can be a negative as well. I've certainly seen that before. For me, man, what you spoke about, Ruth, one of the key moments for me was just this family unit, dysfunctional unit, them bouncing off each other. It wasn't one particular moment featuring them, because there was quite a few moments. The breakout and the avalanche in the prison, David Harbour, his character Red Guardian, coming in and bouncing off of them, asking about, oh my god, is it your time of the month? The way they bat him off, the relationship with him, then the sort of family dinner scene, and it all breaks down. He's getting shot with darts. That was a real standout moment for me. Just the way they bounced off of each other. They're there when they're really young. They have to escape Ohio and go to Russia, and then the way they all come back together. That was a real standout moment for me in this movie. That was the best moment for me, when you've got Yelena firing wisecrack jokes and then she's in tears in the room. Just that was an element I really enjoyed. Was there any particular scenes, sequences, parts of this movie that stood out for you? Because I'll be going through a lot anyway, so if you miss any, I'll certainly bring them up. Was there any that stood out for you, Ruth?
I love the initial fight between Natasha and Yelena, the way they met up with each other and the way they were like each one not trusting. It's like trusting each other and yet not trusting each other. You know, so I loved the entire sequence. The action was fantastic. The interaction between them, the entire dialogue while they were fighting was amazingly executed. I thought that was fantastic. I loved that scene. Then other than that, I kind of like the pig scene a bit.
Yeah.
You know, with that really cracked me up. I thought it was brilliant. It was like
Although the CG,
kind of like it was kind of like cute, funny, but an underlying menacing kind of a line that, you know, made you wonder a little bit about Melina, was it? Yeah. So it made you wonder a bit about her, like what length she could go to, you know. It's like she seems also nice and loving on the surface and almost harmless, but then there's this streak to her that, you know, you don't really know. Yeah, and that carried out, I think, throughout the film. Like, you never really knew where her loyalties actually lay. Like, it always seemed like she could turn each way, but then, you know,
I'll tell you this.
It turned out that she was actually,
see, when they do the switcheroo,
questioning that.
When Natasha and Melina, I was actually shocked. I thought she genuinely stuck them in. Her loyalties were with the Red Room. And you're right, man. Just that actual theme of being pleasant on the surface and there being a sinister undertone, I think that was something that was actually throughout the entire movie. You've got Red Guardian, he's getting played as a joke. He's telling stories that are a little bit fanciful about fights with Captain America back in 1983. He was in the ice, it didn't happen. He's a fantasist. A bit like John Lennon, incidentally. He used to talk about getting high when going to see the Queen and stuff like that. But under the surface, you can see there's a menace to this guy. He's battering guys' arms down in that prison. He's strong as hell. At one point, I actually thought he did have a super soldier serum. When he jumps up the prison wall, I'm like, that guy's unreal.
He is a super soldier.
He's a super soldier. He's actually got it. So
I think she calls him that. She says, "Get going" or something. I don't. don't draw any attention, super soldier. She says
Yeah.
something like that.
Because
during that
he's
jailbreak.
played as a joke, Stephen, but he isn't a joke. The guy's incredibly strong. You can see he's muscular despite
But
his
there is a
advanced
hint
years.
of that at the very beginning of the film as well, at the airport, when he has to remove something out of the way of the plane, the private plane they're trying to escape in. It
Wow, that was a
just
great
launches
scene,
this
by the
thing
way.
away, and you're like, whoa, this guy's powerful. But my favourite sequences are the jailbreak scene. I thought that was well handled.
Unreal.
It was a good way to really establish Alexi's capabilities.
Is that his name? Yeah, I keep forgetting his name.
Yeah,
Alexi.
Red Guardian, isn't it?
Red
Is
Guardian,
his sort
yeah.
of alias, yeah.
She
And the
calls
other
him
one,
the Crimson Dynamo at one point. He's like, it's Red Guardian.
yeah,
Get out.
that's right. Yelena and Natasha's, running away from Taskmaster and the Widows. That car chase scene where she actually rips the car door off. I thought that was fantastic. That reminded me so much of the Winter Soldier sequences. There was elements of that, but there was elements of a lot of the Marvel films throughout this film. I felt the dinner scene, John, that reminded me of Clint Barton's Hideaway. The dinner scene, and what one was that? Was that Age of Ultron? They went there to, just things like that.
See,
There was
that
little
party
elements
scene
of
in Age of
different films
Ultron's
in it.
iconic, man. I forgot
Sorry?
about that. The one where Captain America actually lifts the Mjolnir but puts it back down.
Yeah.
And Thor gives him a look.
Yeah.
I forgot about it. I'm going to go back and watch
Yeah.
that movie, incidentally. I think I've been harsh on that movie.
But the bit as well where she has to go and get gas when she's in the car.
Oh, is
when
that
the car
Taskmaster's
explodes.
introduction? Proper?
Yeah, that was fantastic. Just on that bridge, it was very tense. We don't know who Taskmaster is at this point.
He
And
beats the
it's
shit,
just
or
such
she
a...
beats the shit out of her.
Yeah,
Beats the shit out of her.
yeah.
She kind of has to scurry off through it via the river to get away.
Yep.
She's utilising Captain America moves. Natasha, when she scans her and picks up all of her abilities, that's like Terminator for me. And the way she's using her moves.
I wish the rest of the movie also had that same tone, because when Taskmaster first appears, that scene on the bridge, was it on a bridge?
Yeah.
That that part I thought was really good, very well done. But then after that, Taskmaster just seemed to have lost that menacing.
They go to the train station, don't they?
thing.
And then it just dies, you're right. It was also like the Italian Job, incidentally, as well. There's the little references to movies in this, all the movies. You're right though, Ruth. See if it was like that the entire way through, it would have been an incredible movie. It would have been like the Winter Soldier-esque, without that connection to bring him back.
John, I think it's fair to say Ven Starlord's in the chat just now, and they're saying after this review of you guys, I'm going to watch it. So it's just to pre-warn you, this is a spoiler review.
Yeah, spoiler.
Just, so you know, we have been into spoilers.
Yeah, and then he also goes on to say that they reveal what happened in Budapest. They do, and I enjoyed it a lot. It was Age of Ultron, incidentally.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that little explanation because it was hinted to, and I hate that. As you said, Stephen, you don't like to see everything revealed.
No.
You use Solo as an example. I'm the same, but I wanted to find out what that moment was. It was iconic for
I
the
don't mind
MCU, the
connecting the
Budapest
dots,
thing.
but you don't have to have everything overly explained, you know.
And to be fair, they don't linger on it too long. It's nice and neat. That airfield scene is another standout for me, incidentally. I loved that. Tense as hell. I know she's going to survive because we see her in the MCU afterwards, but it was tense when she obviously Melina takes the bullet and she has to fly the plane. You've got Red Guardian on the wing shooting people with this stuff flipping. I really enjoyed the first 40 minutes of this movie, man, as an entirety. I thought it was really high paced, high octane, lots of action, some brief quiet moments between Yelena and obviously Natasha. They're having the drink and stuff like that, talking about she wants a dog, did you never want kids and stuff like that. But it was unrelenting. And what he says about Taskmaster, Ruth, I really enjoyed that moment, and I keep saying it, man, if they continued that pace it would have been such a better movie for me. When they're sliding down the staircase, the little connector thing into the train station, it was unbelievable. This character was hunting them down, they couldn't get away, and these are two, they've established Natasha as a powerful character in this universe. For her to be running away, to have no answer, see if they'd kept that up for 2 hours, man, it would have been incredible. Then reveal in the last half hour and try and humanise that character. It fell by the wayside. It never really did much after that, and it became a sort of family story. I liked the family moments, but to have that air of malevolence following them throughout the whole movie, that would have added something better to it. It didn't happen though. We get the movie we got, and we're ultimately going to have to live with it. The Norway sequences. Norway is incredible, by the way.
Yeah.
What a country, man.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I believe I need to go to Norway, man. I just love the sort of Scandinavian countries. They're incredible. They're cold as hell, but they're beautiful, and they perfectly capture it. Other criticism, much like Elevator Not Worthy, the ass shots, completely needless. We understand she's got a good physique, but you don't need to show it. every 20 seconds, man. Kate, come on. Kate Shortland, you're a woman as well. What are you doing? Is there any other standout moments, man? Because I don't want to keep going on and on and on. I've got a list of this. So I don't want to take over the entire review.
That are negative, John. That whole sequence I felt at the end when they're flying through the air and all the debris, I just felt it was over the top, and I don't really know the point of it. I don't know the purpose of it. Well, John, the biggest spoiler is there's no stakes with Scarlett Johansson's character. I think that's, and I said to you last night as well, the issue I had with this film, or slight issue I should say, was that Black Widow is like a sort of a bit part character in her own film, I felt, but understood why they did that, because they understood and they realised that they can't really put too many high stakes on this character, because we know of her demise in Endgame, we know that she will survive this story, and it's putting the onus on the other characters and what happens to them. Well, you've got to commend them for the writing there.
Well, I was going to ask you, that was the next point I was going to make after standout moments. Did the lack of stakes for Natasha impact your enjoyment of the high octane mid-air finale? That's exactly what I was going to say, Stephen. Did it impact your enjoyment, Ruth? For me, it didn't really, because I was more concerned about Yelena, and we'll get into that in a moment as well.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be about Black Widow, but for me, it's actually more about Yelena and other characters. Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff actually fades into her own movie, and it becomes more about the periphery figures. So I was more concerned about Yelena, crazy little fucker, blowing up that helicopter and flying, knocked out through the air. For me, that was the stakes.
Yeah.
And obviously Red Guardian, Melina, they got off there sort of spiralling. That was the stakes for me. And I just really sat back and enjoyed the creation of this sequence, the visual effects, skydiving through the air, there was chaos happening. Did it impact your enjoyment with the end scene when they're sort of skydiving, because you knew that Natasha wasn't going to die?
Yeah, you see, that's the thing. I mean, it takes away from the tension when you know where the character is. When there is, I mean, obviously there is an underlying understanding that the heroine of the character of the movie itself is probably not going to die.
Yeah.
But even then, usually in a movie you have that kind of tension, like you're not really sure. It is possible. But whereas this was taken away because we know what Natasha's end actually is. And in Yelena as well, we couldn't feel the tension for her character as well, because we kind of know she's being set up to be introduced into the MCU, so they're not going to kill her off.
And she was talking about
and it. And any other character in the story being killed off, it wouldn't create that much of an impact in terms of, it wouldn't matter as much. I thought, that even if Melina were to have died, or the Red Guardian to a certain extent, it wouldn't have moved us in that same way. So I think that tension taken away didn't impact the scenes at the end as much as it could have.
Yeah.
But I thought the scenes were pretty good. I think all the action scenes were pretty well executed for the most part.
Yeah.
Certain parts maybe a little bit long and draggy, but other than that, in general, all very well executed. The fighting was really good.
Yeah, it was first class.
It's just the villain part of the fighting is just because you didn't care enough, for either Taskmaster or for Dreykov. It's just, it didn't matter. And then the whole reveal, by that time I didn't really care who it really was, and I pretty much figured out, I kind of guessed who it was way before they actually revealed
They were hamming it up a bit, weren't they?
They did miss an opportunity,
it wasn't
I
one
felt.
of those things where you couldn't have guessed it.
And then also they do reveal the character's identity. It goes from being a villain to being someone you sympathise with, so it loses that edge completely. Yeah. So you don't want her to die at the end when they're skydiving. You actually want her to...
I'll be honest, there was another thing I think they missed a trick on, was Taskmaster and Red Guardian's face-off. They kept, it was interspliced, the whole sequence.
Yeah. They
kept moving away from it, and that annoyed me. I thought, you've got these large characters from comic book lore, and you're doing that to them. I felt that should have been an epic moment in the movie, but horses for courses. I get obviously the pacing of the film, and they want to make sure they're covering all angles with what's happening elsewhere, but I just felt that sequence, two big characters, two massive characters in Marvel, they shouldn't have really cut away from that. Should have gave them a bit more screen time.
They should. And then also when the end sequence does happen and they're fighting, it's over in the blink of an eye. She sort of incapacitates her, puts that thing over her, and that's her. She's lifted out of this trance. Basically says he's not coming back and all of that. she ceases to be a villain. So it was all over a little bit.
I'm hoping the Taskmaster is a bit of a MacGuffin in this film. I'm hoping they did what they did in was it Iron Man 3?
Iron Man 3. Yeah.
With
the Mandarin.
I hope that the real Taskmaster is still to appear.
Stephen, look, I'm excited for a lot of elements coming out of this movie. We'll get into that as well. See what you say, Ruth, about the actual action being good across the board, but being a little bit dragged out. See that chase sequence when Taskmaster's chasing him down the road in this big tank? It was right. I loved it, incidentally, because I love Mission Impossible, and it kind of reminded me of the Paris sequence in Mission Impossible 7 Fallout, I think it was. He's riding a motorcycle in Paris. I liked that sequence. I thought it was really well shot. It was exhilarating. And then also when the widow comes on and she's chasing him in the motorbike, that was good, but it did, what he says, it dragged a little bit. I think it was maybe a minute and a half too long, 2 minutes too long.
Yeah. They could have made it just a little bit more tighter. It would have been better.
If you add that up over the movie, action sequences get on a little bit too long. It's taking you away from the emotive moments with the characters, the moments you're spending, because you're lingering on the action a little bit too long. And we'll get into that as well with the actual technical stuff, because that, I think it could have been a little bit tighter, whatever you want to call it. Fancy pants saying taughter. I know another word. Very well, John. But it could have been a little bit more clinical. But we'll get into that, I'm absolutely certain. Standout moments, have we got any others before we move on to the performances? I says I was going to speak about it. I'm going to speak about 2 appearances in this movie, man. 3 appearances. Well, yeah, 2. Red Guardian, I was so fucking harsh on David Harbour. I says this guy looked 56 instead of 40. That guy looks 46. You see it in the beginning of this movie. He's a 46-year-old guy. When he's got the beard away and he's styling his hair, he looks dapper. I like to look at that guy at the start, man. He had the glasses. Sadly, we don't see him enough. Florence Pugh, man, I have to say, man, she's a not bad looking girl anyway, but by God, man, she looked really, really good in this movie. So I'm excited for her moving forward.
How small are they?
She's tiny, absolutely tiny.
I know we're getting into the technical thing, but I didn't realise how small Scarlett Johansson was, and then I looked it up. Like, I'm not as height.
I'm obsessed with height. I always search up actors' heights.
I didn't realise she was only 5 foot, but it showed in this film. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of films.
I think Pugh's a little bit bigger.
Wow. I've seen her in Marriage Story up against Adam Driver, and she didn't look as small as that.
That's good framing, though.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah,
that's what
good
a good
framing,
cinematographer does. He equalises the heights. But yeah, man, Florence Pugh, I was blown away by her, man. Her performances as a whole, and just her actual aesthetic. I thought she looked incredible with the blonde hair. So fair play to Florence Pugh, owning it life. Little bastard. I take it back. She's not a little bastard. Is it the dialogue for me was a standout in this? Some really good snappy dialogue moments.
Very good dialogue.
Back and forth. I enjoyed that. That was an element. But
such a poser.
You're such a oh, that was another standout thing. Yelena absolutely dissing Natasha's heroic pose and saying you're such a poser. Then she does it at one point and she's like, oh, I feel dirty. But she'll have her own heroic pose, believe me, at some point as she becomes Black Widow.
I think by doing all that, they actually made it a good premise, because if they're bringing Yelena into the MCU as a potential another Black Widow, it would actually, she would need to fit in with everything. So they want to create a kind of a nice feeling towards her character that we might have, so that we can embrace her a bit more. And I think that interaction that she had with Natasha was so good that it endeared her towards us a lot more. That by the time she comes into the normal MCU universe, she would be, I think, a bit more well received.
I think she's liked as an actor anyway. I really do. She's been in a lot of movies now. I think she's mid-20s and her career's been really, really good. She's worked with the likes of Ari Aster. She's now a big MCU potential fixture moving forward. So I think she's liked in the main. And this character, they did do a good job of making her likeable with the dialogue, with the aesthetics of walking around with the vest on and stuff like that. The rocket launcher moment. She's I'm fed up with this bitch. I'll take a rocket launcher and blow it up. I like that. So they're making her relatable with the actual backstory, the tragedy of being this widow, being taken away when she's like 5 or 6, losing all of her childhood, losing her uterus and her ability to have a family. That bonds you with the character. And then the fact she's quite chirpy and likeable, I think that she is going to be a fixture. I'm convinced she will be Black Widow. I think she'll maybe make the jump to Hawkeye, and then she'll make her jump to a big movie. They'll maybe test her out in another place. Because these Marvel and these Disney executives, they're all about crunching numbers. They want to see if she's hit off with the fan base. They want to see if she's likeable, if they can make her the next Black Widow before actually making the jump. So I think they'll put her in another project. If she hits off and the fans love her again, I think it's inevitable she's going to be Black Widow. Because
Yeah, that's the other thing. I
She's younger.
wasn't initially very excited about the Hawkeye series. Not as excited as I should have been, I think. But then now, I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm
She's going to be the
excited to
villain
see how it's
potentially,
going to be. Yeah, yeah.
which
So
is interesting.
I thought it
Clint,
was, yeah, exactly.
I feel for Clint Barton. He did nothing wrong. He wanted to save Natasha, and he's been painted as the person responsible for her death. No, he isn't.
What's that actress's name? The character appeared obviously.
She was in Falcon and the Winter
Winter
Soldier,
but,
yeah.
You're right there, John. That's what they do. You know, they've tested that character out in a television series first. They've seen that she's relatable and people want to see more of her. And now she's in that end credits.
Yeah.
It was the end credits scene, wasn't it?
End credits,
Yeah.
That was a great moment.
Yeah.
End credits as well. What was your thoughts on the two end credit scenes? Did you have any? The first
I
one
thought
was
they were
kind of
really
nice.
good, yeah.
Yeah, on you go, man.
Yeah.
If you've got anything to say about them, because I'll let you in first. That's the way we're doing it. You go first. I'll say my bit, then Stephen. Fire away, man. What was your thoughts? What was your favourite? Was the first one or the second one the favourite? For me, I'll let you go first, Ruth. What was your favourite? I don't want to.
No, I thought I mean it would have been better if Black Widow came out when it was supposed to, because then it would have been, we got a glimpse of her in Black Widow, and then we got a bit more about her in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So, but because it came in the opposite timing, it seemed more like we got only a little bit of her in the Black Widow, but we had a lot of
Yeah.
her. But I thought it was very interesting bringing a character in, because you don't really know whether she's good or is she bad.
Oh, she's what with John
Because
Walker.
right now you can't tell. All you know is that she's gathering people, and she seems bad from the advice she's giving Yelena, like kind of putting Barton as the antagonist, and saying that he's responsible for Natasha's death, which technically is
It's
the
true,
truth,
yeah.
but it's not the truth the way
It's like Ben Kenobi. It's true from a certain point of view. From a certain point of view,
Exactly.
it's a fucking
Yeah,
lie.
Exactly.
It's a lie.
So, exactly.
But it is true.
So,
He was
I mean,
responsible.
I mean, he was responsible, and at the same time, he wasn't responsible because she made the decision herself. So, I mean, if you think about it, so you can't really tell who Valentina actually is. You don't know enough. You just know she's probably working for someone, but you don't know at this point whether she's somebody good or whether she's somebody bad. Or she could be somebody that is misguided, or
That's going to be interesting. That's going to be one of the interesting things moving forward in TV, potentially movies as well. Exploring who is her ultimate, I don't know what you call it, boss figure, superior. I don't even know, position above her. Who's in control of this? Who's employing her to gather these other borderline rogue Avengers? You've got John Walker, you've now got Yelena. They're a little bit different to your usual hero figures, the likes of Clint Barton, Black Widow, Goody Two-Shoes sort of figures. Although Clint Barton did massacre about 20 people after Endgame, so maybe that's not a good example at Infinity War. But she's assembling a different kind of heroes that are doing different kind of jobs, so it'll be really interesting to see who's in control of that whole operation. Is it going to be linked to, what was her name? Is it Sharon Carter? This TV show is potentially coming with her. She's playing this broker who's using intelligence within the US government for nefarious means. So it'll be interesting to see how they break that one down. Stephen, what was your favourite end credit scene? I'll briefly give my thoughts and then I'll let you in, Stephen.
What were the two? I know
the first one was the grave scene. Sorry, the first one was when it's Natasha and that little friend, the sort of guy that gets her things. The sort of Morgan Freeman red character kind of thing from Shawshank Redemption.
Was that end credit? Or was that just
that was
the
it.
end of the film?
Well, that kind of blended in from the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I'm pretty damn sure it was an end credit though. And she's walking off, and it's kind of the final farewell for Natasha. Last time we see her as that character, and then she's also walking into the Avengers ship, or that ship, to go and break out. Clint Barton and Scott Lang.
Scott Lang.
I was having an aneurysm there.
The Falcon as well.
Falcon, yes, Sam Wilson. So that's bleeding in. That's that connection you were wanting, Stephen.
Yep.
And then the fight, the actual other end credit scene for me was probably the best one, just because it's the grave of Natasha. It's Yelena having that dialogue with that character, and it's world building for the future moving forward. So for me, it was probably the end one for me. But look, again, they could have done something a little bit better, but their hands are tied. This is a prequel movie. They've got so much coming. They can't really spoil what their plans are for the future. We've had better end credit scenes. I mean, the one in Captain Marvel, was it Captain Marvel where it was Captain America? Well, what was the one Captain America was doing the lessons, the sort of the videos? Spider-Man. He was doing his little videos. I thought that was brilliant, man. The continuation of that into an end credit. Yeah. So there's been better end credits, man. The reveal of Thanos in an end credit.
Yeah, I think the ending with Natasha was a nice fit. Yeah, it wasn't necessary. We didn't really need it. You know, I think we've moved on from Civil War, but I think it was just a nice fit to establish to the audience when this was set. Even getting her hair dyed and cut short, so for the continuity it shows you the detail that Kevin Feige and Marvel go to in this universe. But for me, it is the end credit scene, the one with the gravestone. I thought it was touching that it said daughter, sister, Avenger on her headstone.
Something like that.
Which was touching, you know, because I think that was the sort of one of the themes or main themes throughout the film was about this family, this sort of dysfunctional family.
What was a family?
Yeah.
Is it the Avengers?
You know, and that kind of confirmed it, you know, it was said as well, you know, that the whole scenario with the family wasn't a lie. She didn't believe that. And I thought that was nice. It's also setting up what's to come with obviously the Florence Pugh character, which I like, because we got a lot of her in this film, which I thought was needed. And I'm glad we got a lot of her. She was the sort of, I'm going to say it just now before we get into standouts, she was a standout for me. I thought she carried the film very well. Unfortunately, that's going to make Natasha's role a bit more of a secondary character in her own film, unfortunately. But I think that was necessary because the MCU are always looking forward, and they did it again with that end credit scene. It's giving you a glimpse into what Yelena's next mission is going to be. It's going to be to target Clint.
And she's going to be in Hawkeye, and again that's a signal to people who haven't been switched on to these TV shows,
Kevin said,
to remain connected to every single detail in this cinematic universe, to remain in step with it. You have to watch everything. You have to watch the TV shows, you have to watch the movies, and that connection from Black Widow into potentially Hawkeye, I think that's the absolute cherry on the cake for that whole thing. You have to remain switched on. Lord Star-Lord, Von Star-Lord, I should say, I'm making names up here, says maybe Kang, is he talking about the figure controlling this rogue team? It's possible. Many variants of Kang are going to be popping up. I don't know how that jives with the timeline. I'm using that word jive again. I hate it. I don't know, man. He's a bit big, isn't he? I think he's got other things to do. Potentially he's time travelling and stuff like that, jumping dimensions, wreaking havoc. It could be, though. Time will tell, man. What is this? I can't even read it.
Thanos collected stones.
What's that, sorry?
Thanos collected stones.
At the
time you're thinking, what's this saddle all about?
Listen, it might be right, man. It could be Kang.
Maybe he's collecting people.
Because Kang's ultimately going to be the big bad, I think, for the next phase, couple of phases going on, and he's going to want another opposing team to slow things down. He's not going to want them to be fighting with him primarily. He'll probably want goons.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Yelena's going to fight for Kang.
Guardians of the Galaxy, didn't he? The blue-faced chap, can't remember his name.
You want to?
No, I can't remember his name. He was in the Hobbit films as well. He was a sort of secondary antagonist. He was working for Thanos. Can't remember his name.
That
you talking about the boy guy? Yeah, the dance-off.
Yeah.
I also forget his name.
Yeah. Lee Pace or something, is it? Something like that. Lee Pace, I think it might be.
Lee Pace, it is Lee Pace, but I can't remember the actual character's name.
I'm going to check that out.
He was a good villain.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It could be like that, John. You're absolutely right.
Could be a minor thing.
Ronan, yeah.
What was his name?
Ronan
the Conqueror.
Yeah.
Performances in this movie, though. What was Stevens kind of gave a game away with his standout performer. Yeah. What was your standout performance in this movie, Ruth? Did you have a couple? Was there one real obvious candidate in this movie? What was your standout performance? Because there was a few good.
I love Yelena's character a lot. Florence Pugh, I think, did a fantastic job, and I'm very excited for her character. However, they want to fit her into the MCU, so I thought that was really well done. I kind of liked the movie also because of the fact of how they handled Natasha's character as well. It was like a very nice love letter to her, knowing how she ended up and all that. So it was actually a very nice way to kind of say goodbye to the character. Yeah. So that was, I think, very well done. They could have utilized the the Red Guardian a bit more, I think, because his strength is so powerful. If they had shown, like a really good, solid strength on strength fight between the Taskmaster and him, it would have been good, which I thought was a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
So in that sense, all these three characters I thought was a bit different enough and a standout enough that I really liked it. And I think Rachel Weisz also did quite a good job given what she was doing. There was a little bit of sinister element to her, which I thought was really well done.
Yeah, I've not really seen Rachel Weisz tackle a character like that before. I've not really followed her career in depth. I've seen some hits, but I've not really seen her tackle a character with that sort of moral precipice, sort of walking that moral precipice. Is she good? Is she bad? She's been a semi-mother figure to these two young kids for 3 years, and then she's trying to choke a pig out. So you're like, what is? And then she's kind of responsible for mind control and all of these young women all over the world. So she was a morally ambiguous character, but it was a great performance from her the time she was in.
Yeah,
I really love David Harbour, man. I've seen this guy in multiple things now. Stranger Things, Hellboy. It was a bad movie, but he wasn't the issue with it being bad. He's a really charismatic, bigger, larger than life figure. I think he's a great guy off the screen. I don't actually know him personally, but much like Jason Momoa, you get the sense with people that they're genuinely good people. And I wish nothing but the best for that guy moving forward. So I hope he has a continuing role. It's an interesting character.
It would be nice to bring back the Red Guardian and then maybe give him a bit more of an action sequence.
Well,
that
they're
would
hinting.
Actually be really good.
Kevin Feige hinted that he could be going up against Sam Wilson's Captain America. So he could maybe appear and maybe try and test himself against this new age of Captain America, who hasn't got the super soldier serum, but I tell you, he's got steel, or I was about to call them adamantium wings. Adamantium doesn't exist in this universe, John. It's vibranium.
Vibranium, yeah.
He has vibranium wings, so he has that sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, advantage where he can beat the shit out of this older Red Guardian, this grizzlier, but still very fucking strong. Let's be honest, he was knocking people all over the place. I loved that, the fact he ripped that guy out the window incidentally. That was another great moment. Part of that larger prison escape sequence, which I think was one of the standout moments, much like yourself, Stephen. Performance for me, it's absolutely 100% Florence Pugh. I seen that before I went into the movie. Much of the critiques, proper critiques I should call them, the ones who went to university to get their film degrees, those critiques, they says that Florence Pugh was the standout performer. She was the shining light in this movie. She almost outdone Scarlett Johansson, which is no mean feat because she is incredible. Yeah. One of the great actors of her generation, of her time. She's one of the highest paid as well. So it was no mean feat, but I just thought her character was the most compelling. It had probably the most development. She goes from being this mind-controlled figure to having complete autonomy and then going on this journey, getting her dog. I love the fact she got her dog, incidentally, as a dog owner. So for me, it was her. She was a standout performer, and she really had to be. She had to lay a marker down here to make her case for getting into this role moving forward. I think she's done it. She's charismatic, vibrant, young, fucking years left. She can play this character for a decade. So she was a standout for me, but there was other elements. Scarlett Johansson always has a performance. Always. She has her moments in this where she's playing cat and mouse with that villain. I forgot his name again, Ray Winston. Oh, Jesus Christ, man. Early onset, I think. Don't speak about that. I actually heard about a rugby player getting early onset. I don't want to make fun about that. It's a horrendous disease. Horrendous. 42-year-old guy, rugby player. Terrible. That actually shocked me the other day. But yeah, for me, it was Yelena Pugh, I was about to call her. Florence Pugh. Then it's probably David Harbour, Scarlett Johansson, and then Rachel Weisz for me. Ray Winston doesn't feature. Olga Kurylenko isn't in it enough, so she doesn't feature. It's really a three-way tie between Scarlett, Florence and David for the supremacy, and for me Florence edges it because she's incredible. But yeah, man, technical stuff. If we get any thoughts on the editing, the cinematography, the score. I know you liked the score, Stephen.
I did.
The score was good. It had Russian vibes.
John,
Russian anthem vibes.
The reason I did like the score in this film is because it reminded me so much of The Dark Knight. Some of those tones, and the reason for that, and the minute I listened to it and I went, that reminds me of Dark Knight, I wanted to check out who the composer was in this film. It was Lorne Balfe. He's from Inverness, by the way, John.
Is he Inverness? Whoa!
And he was born on the same day as me, so I like the guy already. And he worked on The Dark Knight.
Stephen?
he worked on The Dark Knight in the music department. That's how it's obviously rubbed off on him, because there was some moments in there I thought that sounds very similar to
the far-reaching tentacles of Hans Zimmer.
Yeah,
the guy influences everybody these days.
Yeah,
they use Hans Zimmer's score numbers as temp tracks for action movies. That's how fucking incredible he is.
Yep.
They use his stuff as temp tracks while they're editing the movie together. Then they bring in the composer and he puts his own flourish on it. So it doesn't surprise me he's worked in movies like that. I thought the score was really good as well. Ruth, did you have any love or distaste for the score? What was your thoughts on cinematography? The way this movie kind of was put together. I thought the action was incredibly
beautiful.
captured.
It was beautiful, especially all the scenes in Norway. It was fantastic. I love them. It's so pretty and I think the cinematography was really good. The score was really good as well. I really felt they played up the emotion, especially even in the beginning when they were showing the family and then them being torn apart and everything. So I thought the entire thing was handled really well. It really felt good. Yes. Yeah, all of it was, I think it was technical wise, I think it was handled quite well. All of it. It had the usual standards, maybe not as high as the other MCU movies like an Avengers movie or whatever. But I thought it was pretty much up there in terms of the technical stuff.
The only issue I'd have technical with this movie, as I did hint to earlier on, was maybe editing. There was little moments you could have made a little bit more tighter, tauter. You could have just made it a tiny little bit shorter. I think it was 2 hours 15 minutes or something. It was a pretty short movie, in fairness. I think they could have got this movie. They could have got it down to the magic 2 hour mark for me. They could have cut 15 minutes from this movie, no problem. But look, it wasn't a long movie by any stretch, so I'm being harsh on it. Stephen, did you have issues with the editing? What was your thoughts on cinematography before we get into our final thoughts?
I thought it flowed well. Just as we mentioned earlier, I think they could have maybe trimmed some sequences down a slight bit, maybe a minute or two. But it's not going to ruin my viewing pleasure of this. I will go back to watching this movie again. It's just nitpicking, really. I thought the editing was fine. I thought you had some famous numbers in there, American Pie, which I felt was added to the theme of the sort of tragedy of this broken family, and also Smells Like Teen Spirit. I thought it was a great cover.
Yeah, well, that was good. Yeah, the Kurt Cobain stuff when they're getting took away. See you after, Von Starlord. Thank you for coming in. Enjoy the movie. It's a good movie, man. You'll enjoy it. We're getting to the rating shortly, but it's a really good movie. I enjoyed it a lot. For me, it's not one of the best MCU movies ever, but it's nowhere near the bottom. No chance. It's nowhere near Dark World and stuff like that. But we're getting to the rating. Final thoughts, overall thoughts on this movie, and then we'll get into the rating. For me, I was actually pleasantly surprised with this movie. I thought it was better than I was anticipating. I was concerned that how much they could do with a character that's already dead. Was there enough in these new characters being introduced to give us a compelling watch? For me, there was. The new characters took over. They outshone Natasha. So this was a really enjoyable watch. There is nitpick moments that the villains were a bit weak. But for me, that didn't really affect my enjoyment of this movie much. I thought in the main it was a movie about female empowerment, about this family unit, dysfunctional unit, that weren't really a family getting back together. And I thought those beats through that sort of theme, through that concept, worked really well. So for me, I enjoyed this movie a lot, man. And that's why I'm ultimately going to give it the rating I'm giving it, man. But what is your thoughts, Ruth, Stephen, on this movie? You can fire in whatever one wants to go first. If you've got overall thoughts. I'm being presumptuous.
For me, I thought it wasn't as good as all of the other MCU movies, but it's definitely up there, definitely better than Dark World and what do you call that? Probably on the range of maybe Ant-Man and all that. So it's similar to that kind of a range of an MCU movie. So I thought it was very enjoyable. I was surprised that it was as good as it was. So I really enjoyed it. If only the villains had been better, it would have been a really good movie.
Yeah.
But because they were lacking, it fell short in that sense. But other than that, everything else about the movie I loved.
Yeah, for me it was the antagonist. I felt they just weren't strong enough. I felt some of the humour was misplaced as well. But saying that, again, it's nitpicking. Overall, it was an enjoyable film. It was an enjoyable film. It was a simple story of good versus evil. There was nothing too complex in there. It was all about character development. It was all about introducing these new characters and making them hit the ground running. We got that with Yelena, thanks to Florence Pugh's performance. David Harbour as Alexei, he hit the ground running, and Rachel Weisz as well, and Melina. We knew that Scarlett Johansson was going to bring her A game anyway. It was her sort of send off. You know, this was her last MCU film. And again, a nitpick again. It's Natasha Romanoff's film. I felt she was a side character in her own film.
Who wants to go first with ratings, Steve? You want to go first?
I'll go first. I'm giving it a C.
A C. I tell you what, Stephen, I've been yo-yoing big time, and I tell you what, I'm going to give this movie. I was going to give it a B minus, but you know what? Just because of the villain issue, it's a C plus.
Fair dues, yeah.
Not enough compelling villains in this. Not strong enough. It was a good watch. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's an excellent movie. And I did say movies like Ant-Man, much like you said, Ruth, they go into that C range. I've said a lot of MCU movies I enjoy a lot, it's going into that high C range. Yeah. So it's a C plus for me. What's your rating for this, Ruth, if you've got any?
Yeah, I was yo-yoing between a C minus and a C at the start because the villains were very disappointing. But if you look at, if I want to just consider my overall enjoyment of the film, then I think I would still go with a C plus.
C plus, yeah.
Yeah, so it had good elements about it. I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's a good movie. It's not an excellent movie by any stretch. For me, movies like Winter Soldier, Civil War, they're B minus B movies. They're not even B plus. They're some of the best things that have been done in the MCU. I think Doctor Strange, that's probably a C plus B minus as well. They're in that range, most of these movies.
Yeah.
They're not contending with the likes of The Father, the likes of Cool Hand Luke. For me, some of the great movies that have been made that aren't quite perfection, they're not in that contention. I'm a big MCU fan, I love it. But I've said time and again, the likes of Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, they come out and criticise these movies, and I can understand the criticism because they're not on the level of some of the movies they've created. So it's fair criticism. But for me, I think a C plus is fair, man. I think that the ratings in general are fair. But look, man, has anybody got anything else to say before we round this review up?
No, I'm done.
Are you done, Ruth, as well? I was going to round it up then. That's our review of Black Widow, done, finished, kaput. What's your thoughts on this movie? Have you seen the movie? Do you share our sentiments on the ratings, on the overall chat around the movie, standout moments, performances, technical stuff? Do you think it could have been a little bit tighter as well? 2 hours, I think, was a fair number to get down to for this movie. What's your thoughts on it, Jen? You can comment below if you've got anything to share and you feel compelled to put it down in the comment section. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel and hit the follow button over on Twitch if you want to see more content like this in the future, and you will get it, guys. That's how you enable it. But look, until then, me, Stephen and Ruth are done. Bye bye. It's not worked. Go to me. That's me. Stephen. Bye bye. Shambles. It always ends shambolically. Bye, guys. Bye. Fuck me.